All right. Well, welcome to episode 185 of Together BHA. Speaking of five, not bad, not a bad performance today, fellas. We've got Adam and Craig here, as always, joined by myself, unsurprisingly, and we also have Tommy on the show, another fan guest coming on. Tommy, I know you were on once upon a time a while back for an Everton game. I believe you said. I did not go back and listen to it to remember how that went down. So if it was poor, let's just put a line under it and crack on. But how is everybody going today? How is everybody feeling? I assume quite good after that.
Yeah, it's good, Josh. I will say nobody should go back and listen to that podcast from that Everton match. And 50 seconds into today, I was thinking Josh is never going to invite me back. So all is glorious since that moment, though. So
not bad today, was it? Yeah, I think we exorcised any demons that had been in the system on Tuesday, well and truly, and we're actually, after 6 games in the Premier League, still 4th, which is just obscene. Yeah, I don't really know what to say. If we beat Bournemouth, you start to get incredibly excited, don't you? And then we lose to Palace. But cloud 9 right now. Craig, what about you, mate?
Very good. I think, last week I was saying this could be a bit of a banana peel for us. We tend to play to the strength of the other team, and we tend to struggle against teams that aren't doing so well. So a pleasant surprise today. Very, very happy.
Felt like a trap game, didn't it? Had all the makings of one. There was one change to the side that rolled out against Fulham, so not many changes, which is quite a surprise actually, and that was Welbeck back in and Estepinian out. So in terms of lineup, everything was pretty much the same, but we did see Trossard revert back to left wing back, which is something we touched on at Fulham.
Don't forget Mwepu, Josh.
And Mwepu in. Mwepu was in and at that kind of, that number 8-10 role that he was what we were hoping to see in the first place. Yeah. And he played really well. We'll get on that, obviously. But how are we feeling about that lineup? Not many changes from midweek. After such a really poor performance, it's got to be said, just about as bad as day at the office as it can get from just about everyone on the field. How are we feeling about that? No wholesale changes, very calm, very chill, pretty much what you probably expect. But were we happy with that? Were we hoping for more?
I was happy with that. I think we've spoken about Trossard in that left wing back role and how good he started the season in that role as well, until Estepinian came in. It was strange to see Estepinian dropped so quickly. I guess that's more of a tactical decision more than anything. He was left off the match graphic, so I didn't think he was in the squad at all, which was strange. But I think it was sort of stick with what you know, and putting Trossard back in that sort of wing back role obviously worked. We'll get onto that, but fairly comfortable with the approach.
That's exactly the one we talked about the last time around, right? Which is there's a few of those mistakes in Estepinian's first couple of games. Is he fully up to speed with playing with in the system with the players? Maybe not. Let's go back to what we know and put Trossard in his left wing back position, which has suddenly now seemingly become, again, based on what we're seeing, I don't know, it feels like his best position for me, which I didn't think I'd ever say. A forward playing in left wing back is working amazingly well. Outside of that, the only thing for me, the only slight bit of downside when looking at the team sheet is, does Lamptey ever start for this club anymore? Like, is that going to happen again? And we didn't see him until really late. I guess we just prefer the ability for March's slightly more attacking positional play than what Lamptey can do. I guess it's just Potter's preference. But outside of that, it's looking good, and I like Mwepu. I like how direct he is.
Yeah, I was thinking of when I saw the lineup card. I was thinking of Josh's comment last week about Mwepu having that first rough start when he comes back in, and that taking that ball off Madison, and the goal that he produced was vindication. But it's also great to just see there's a lot of confidence with Danny Welbeck up there. I didn't assume that goals were going to be coming from him, but just having him up top and making those runs was confidence producing right off the bat.
Yeah, once again, the amount of space that was available to us because Danny Welbeck was on the pitch was apparent from the word go. But speaking of the word go, 53 seconds, my wife was very keen to point out. I said 1 minute. She was like, no, it was 53 seconds, Josh. So thanks for that. So 53 seconds in, we are 1-0 down. Two things to touch on really there. Solly March, not the greatest in kind of holding up play and showing any kind of defensive strength there. He was bundled off the ball quite handily. And then the second one was Adam Webster being dragged in massively to the ball as it was put through for the tap in. If he had not come forward there, that was an easy defensive clearance. But obviously that wasn't to be. And 53 seconds in, we are 1-0 down against the team bottom of the league with 1 point from a possible 15. We've seen this many a time at the Albion where we starting to get Brighton and Hove Albion PTSD, fellas, or what were we thinking there when just about everything that could go wrong after Fulham, no less, with everything that had happened? How were we feeling there? I've got to admit, I was like, oh boy, here we go again. This is something we've seen for 20 years. The Albion special is upon us.
Yeah, fully ready for the meltdown. Fully ready. And it felt horrible because you had all this like, okay, let's break out of that game earlier in the week. We're at home. We're against a team that is a walking disaster. Walking being the key word there because they don't do a lot of running. And then we just go straight in and just do that's just the unthinkable. Which you mentioned this when we were talking earlier that the team seemed to have a bit of a problem getting started, and we've been talking about this for so long at this point that I don't even remember. Which is just quite slow out the blocks. And I don't know whether it's nerves, what it is, but for a team that's so controlled for about 89 or 80 other minutes at most, we seem to fall apart early on. And I don't quite know what that is. We will, by the way, just for people listening that are coming into this on a high, we are going to talk about the good bits. We just have to do it a bit chronologically because it didn't get really, really good until the second half when it did get incredibly good. But the start, horrendous. I mean, it didn't really bode much better going in the halftime whistle either. So it's a bit of a weird one. Weird half all in all.
Very strange. I mean, it did make me laugh. Like just 53 seconds in, this is the most Albion thing that could possibly happen. Currently sitting in fourth, and just two individual mistakes just leads to 1-0 down, and you're like, brilliant. This is so typical. But after that, and obviously there were some other mistakes. I think Webster was partially at fault for the second goal of theirs too, with a what might want to call a hospital pass, but it was very bad. But there's just those mistakes that were creeping in. I think that first half where too many individual mistakes, despite the rallying and getting two back, like it was fairly quick and fairly controlled. It was all one way, but just those mistakes just undone that first half and that work between minute 2 and minute 40. So yeah, very choppy first half. I'm glad we actually picked up the pace in the second.
For me, I think you could see, I think the overall, like you said, Adam, we'll cover it later, all the good bits, but the amount of character that the club
You've gone.
We've lost you.
You've gone silent
you,
for me.
You've gone silent for everybody. Yep.
We've got a technical audio thing.
We do.
How about now?
Yeah, there we go. We're back.
I made some amazing points, so so I'll end my podcast now. But what I was saying was that the character that I just think that, if I were to pause, usually some of the guests that come on talk about their bio, about how they became, a Brighton fan. And I was thinking about a couple episodes ago, there was a guy that had like put together a proper spreadsheet on
Dagan's infamous spreadsheet. Yeah.
The infamous spreadsheet, and how my story is the complete inverse of that. But in another column for him to add, if he didn't have this, was just like the underlying character of not only the players, but the club as a whole. And I felt like throughout the match, I mean, I think Josh, you even had a few of your tweets talking about like, if it wasn't for bad luck, like it was just so constant, and we'll get into it. But for me, I mean, right off the bat, I mean, Solly is not playing with a lot of confidence, especially in front of goal. And then to turn the ball over 50 seconds in and give up the goal, but to have him be kind of the catalyst to restart that just speaks to like his and the character of the squad and the trust they have for each other. And so, anyway, I think from that point on, you could almost see them kind of wake up and they knew that it was going to be a long day, but they were going to make it happen.
I want to make a quick statement for the Together BHA PR team and say that we are absolutely happy and positive with Solly March's performances. There are good and bad aspects to them, and it's funny, right? Because I think today you saw absolute Solly, his essence. It's sort of messy on the ball for a lot of the time. As soon as he sees the goal, he turns into, I'm trying to think of a flop striker, any Chelsea number 9. It's remarkable because he looks so amazing. Yeah, Mope in his Everton debut. That's what he looks like. It's so weird. I'm sure we'll dig into more, but the other piece, though, outside of Solly, is that just overall is one of those great games there after the second half where suddenly you look around and you go, I could think of maybe 5-6 plus players that could be man of the match today, all for various different reasons. And those are always the good games, especially after that first 50 seconds in. If you told me that would be what would be coming out of the game, I'd have said, I don't know about that one.
Yeah. And within 10 minutes, the response, as you said, Tommy, was pretty quick. We came out as soon as we conceded that goal and didn't let it bother us. And we started carving them apart with regularity. And more positive and optimistic fans of teams that aren't so prone to making mistakes like this may well have saw this kind of result on the cards, but I don't think anybody saw us putting 5 past anyone, given it's our first time ever. But yeah, the response was rapid, wasn't it? Solly March, good little header across goal that ended up being an own goal from Luke Thomas. But he's got to get into those positions to have those things happen. And like you said, it was kind of Solly in and of himself. That's all of him combined into one. He offers so much, but can cost us so much as well at the same time, both ends of the pitch, really. But the goal itself, superb response. Definitely an own goal, no doubt about that. It looked like Solly was heading it back across, or was the hope. But Luke Thomas was kind enough to pop it into his own net. And 5.5 minutes later, we had a second goal. And that one, Adam, you touched on it. Enoch Mwepu and his directness. I'll let you summarize that entirely, but let me just say that was one of the best first touches I've seen from a midfielder, to just breeze past a man before the rest of that play, that I've seen in a long time. That was like on my notes today. I was like, we've got to talk about the fact that when he brought that ball down in midfield, the one touch he made to just breeze past whoever that was in midfield was unbelievable. Like, that was top class. And it ended up shaping the whole move, didn't it?
He intercepted the ball, first of all. Maddison, maybe. Horrible day for him. I mean, goodness gracious. What a guy on the cusp of getting into the England team. He looks terrible. Yeah, he intercepted it, and then he sort of did this bit of a juke. He sort of went from his right through to his left and absolutely murked the player, and then just sprinted. And he timed his pass and his selection out perfectly, because he had Welbeck to his left and Moises to his right. First of all, let's also say, what the hell was Moises Caicedo doing sprinting up central right forward position, but fine. And he picks his pass up perfectly. So he was basically the halfway line, intercepted the ball, turns around someone, just loses 2 other players behind him, times his pass perfectly, and then Caicedo just blasts it in. I don't really think many other players on the team do what Mwepu did there, and I love seeing it. I do wonder how often we'll see Mwepu start based on everything that we discussed before and not having that out-and-out sort of anchor defensive midfield player. But when we're able to play him in a home game against a weak side or changing the formation around a little bit, he really brings an edge to this team. He's a really interesting player.
He's pretty special, isn't he? I think we talked last week around his sort of goals and assists per game and what you could do if you extrapolate those values and those figures. It's just he always looks so gangly on the ball, doesn't he? Like it just looks like he's never quite in control, and then he does something like that today, and it's just he brings that. We always talk about that dynamism and that energy in the middle. He's just so direct, so quick, and is able to pull that out of the bag. And fair play to Caicedo being on hand and just smashing it into the side netting as well, like he does it day in, day out.
Put Caicedo up right wing. I want to see more of that.
And we'll get on to Caicedo as well, but right forward, he was everywhere today, alongside the inevitable Mccallister that we'll talk about later as well. But I thought Caicedo was everywhere today again, and just again, you look at that record since he started playing for us, like it's a high percentage. He brings so much to this team, and enables everyone else to shine at the same time. It's incredible for a 20-year-old.
Yeah, I would say we should point out that Solly's found a loophole in his goal scoring curse as well. He's just going to start blasting it off players for going to lead the league in own goals moving forward. Yeah, and on the Caicedo front, I mean, Adam's joke aside, I got to a match last year and got in, did the fanboy thing early, was in as soon as they opened the door. And Caicedo, aside from every other player on the team, was, I guess it's warm-ups, was one of the most lethal kind of finishers of the ball just in basic warm-up. So again, joke aside, the ability to get him into those scoring positions, I think is obviously critical and key. So, and it showed today.
Yeah. Let's talk comments in the chat, because there's a lot of them. So we're not ignoring you. We're going to just get to those right now, because some of them fall in line with where I wanted to go with the second Leicester goal. So Alex in the chat on YouTube, the last match is all forgotten now. Went from one of the worst performances to the best. We'll talk about that second half. I think it's up there for one of the best second halves in Amex history, not just Premier League, but we'll get to that. The El Dude brothers, what a win. 5-2 is never a bad place to be. Mccallister, goal should not have been disallowed. We are getting to that, Mr. Barbecue. Don't you worry, that we will be addressing that one for sure. Alex as well, cracking response to that dire midweek performance. Thankfully, the VAR decision didn't swing the game to Leicester and we pushed on. We will talk about that a little bit too, because you could see it did affect us a little bit. And we'll talk again just about that mentality of the Albion once we get to that point in the game. At time, it felt like it was going to be one of those games. Yep, we've talked about that. Both of their goals still raise concerns with the defense, much like Tuesday. Hopefully, just a blip. That's where we're going next. Saw Leicester with a goalless draw. Nick in the chat as well against Stockport in the League Cup a couple of weeks ago. Fair play to you, Nick, for watching Leicester versus Stockport in the League Cup. That's doing the real research, where they posed no attacking threat. Said pre-match that they'd offer nothing going forwards. Felt I jinxed things after minute 1. So we know who was almost to blame for this. Michael in the chat. That's my dad. Look at you, Dad. You're adapting. You're commenting on YouTube comments on a live thread. Well,
we need to boost our listener and viewer figures. This is great. Thank you.
I hope that's T, Josh. Yes, it is. It's only 1:53 p.m. I'm not on anything else just yet. Ox inspired. Let's go. Insane game today. What a performance. Bit worried about a little leaky at the back, but as long as we can keep finishing, that won't be an issue. Mccallister today. Flame emoji. Pretty much sums up Mccallister today. But let's talk about that second goal and what Alex and Ox have talked about. And that's the little bit leaky at the back performance that we saw today. And this is the third, maybe fourth time that we've seen it happen now in 6 games. So it's becoming a bit of a pattern. Really obnoxiously stupid Hollywood balls going out to players that were never going to work out. Estepinian tried to do a huge big switch across the back 4 a couple of games ago that was just absolutely mental. Webster did it today, which led to that second goal. Dunkey did it. I think it was the first or second game that almost cost us as well. And I think there's been one other. It may have been Caicedo, I think, also tried to spread it miles out wide and almost cost us a goal a couple of weeks ago as well. Becoming a bit of a pattern, these huge balls that are trying to be big switches in our own half that aren't anywhere near enough to get us there to the man in question. And almost every single one has resulted in either a goal-scoring opportunity that Sanchez has been required to save, or today, unfortunately, we saw it, a really tidy finish, all credit to him, and a really good goal today. But again, it was one of those things that was very self-defeating, wasn't it? We should have said we shouldn't have ever had that happen, and that's more than once we've seen it. What is going on there? Webster not having the best time, is he? These first couple of games in the season, and with Levi Colwill signed up, albeit just on loan, it's probably not the space you want to be in, is it? Having these kind of rough games on occasion early on.
Yeah, and let's not forget about Van Heck being kept around too. I don't think that the design there is to just have him sit on the bench all year. One thing that was interesting to me, because we can always pick out, like, if someone makes a long ball and it's just one bad long ball and it costs you that, we suddenly spend a while talking about that. I think if I remember it correctly, he tried to play the pass over, it got intercepted. Leicester then passed it sideways and backwards, then forwards to Tielemans, who just went bang and played this amazing through ball through. And then Dunk just kind of slid, and he wasn't ever going to get there. I think he just wanted to kind of look okay on the replay. It was a weird pass, and Webster hasn't been that good. He hasn't been that good since his injury end of last season either. But long ball stats from today. I'm stealing some of Josh's stat stuff here. Look at this.
Get after it.
This is big. It's probably all wrong. We attempted an absolute boatload of long balls today. Lewis Dunk attempted 15, and 12 of them were accurate. Veltman 11, 7 accurate. Webster was third with 9 and only 3 accurate. So we tried a lot, and we're not commenting on the other 26 that Dunk and Veltman made, or the other 8 that Adam Webster attempted. It was a bit unlucky. I think it's just a part of the way in which we had to adapt to play against this team that likes to play on the counter. There's something up with Adam Webster. I don't judge him for that ball, but there is something up with him. He's not the player he was this time last year.
Yeah, there's a difference in those long balls as well, and I think just touching on that quickly is that we've seen a pretty hefty increase in that directness, especially the start of this season. Is that you'll look at the stats from Sanchez, you'll look at the stats from Webster, Dunk, and Veltman to an extent, just the amount of more direct passes that we're trying to make, and I think the stats will back it up. But it's the eye test as well, is that you can see that that's happening, and we may be just seeing a direct result of that maybe change in tactic, that not all of them are going to come off, and also at the same time, given how high we were at the time, and it's a great through ball, and Dak has put it away amazingly, right? Not taking away from the Leicester part of that.
Second best Zambian on the pitch, not bad.
Yeah, so it just felt unnecessary to make that pass. But then again, if it comes off, you're like, brilliant. Another crossfield ball.
Yep.
Everybody's laughing. He just got it wrong. Like you said, I don't begrudge people from getting it wrong. It's just if it starts to trickle in more and more often, and we start seeing that happen over and over, that's where we probably need to be vigilant. But it is what it is. It's a great through ball for Tielemans. Dak has put it away with aplomb. Like, it's just annoying that that's been happening maybe one too many times so far. We're only 6 games in, I know, but yeah, it's strange.
caveat before you jump in, Tommy, is that we're highlighting the bits of our. It would be a boring podcast if we just sat here and just said Brighton are massive, we're amazing, we're fourth in the league, and then we just say how great everyone is for an hour. We're picking out the minutiae and the small few bad points that we're seeing out in what is essentially the best this side has ever historically performed. So that just to note for people that are listening and like, why are these idiots all just saying bad stuff? Like there was a lot of good stuff to talk about.
Well, I'll thread the needle then between you and Craig. Then it felt like we've all been here as former has-been players in some level, but you've been on the pitch and you're like, oh, we're just going to have our way with these guys all day. It struck me as just like a level of overconfidence of like, I'm going to send this ball and it's going to go exactly where because 50 seconds in, all right, that's all you all have. And then it just seemed like everything was downhill towards our goal. And so it was, I guess it was a nice Webster reminder that there's other professional footballers on the field as well. And it would have been great to have been a fly on the wall. I'm sure Dunk just absolutely annihilated him in the locker room at halftime about that ball as well. But yeah, I agree with you. We'll pick at it, but I think I think at times you could see him probably switching off at that point. So
better than annihilating him on the pitch like Leicester were doing before halftime, I suppose, because they were getting into it.
Yeah, I purposely don't want to talk about how bad they were because we were that good, but there is some stuff that needs to be talked about.
They didn't look like a Premier League team outside of the way they took the 2 goals and obviously Tielemans' quality when he wants to be, which isn't all the time. They barely look like a Premier League team, which is such a worry for them, isn't it, and their fans, because coming from a few years back of arguably one of the best seasons of football we've ever seen, to see Leicester win a Premier League title just reduced to this is a bit pitiful, isn't it? But it's nice to smash them as well. Screw them. We're not fans of Leicester.
Yeah. Hopefully we don't, in 7 years' time, we don't look back on this title winning season for us and realize it's become quite a pitiful ending for us. I think we're better run than that. So we'll probably win back-to-backs. But Dagan in the chat, Tommy, I agree with your point about the character of players. To me, all of that is an extension of Potter's leadership and long-range developmental approach to team building. And let's talk about that because half-time was a big one. Very lazy at the back. As Tommy said, almost arrogant to a fault. And that team came out from the second half, and we will have no bad words to say about this Brighton and Hove Albion team from here on out until the end of the show. This was probably the best half of football I've seen from a Brighton team since we were winning League One back with Gus Poyet and where we were almost faultless for game after game after game. This was one of the most one-sided, dominant performances we've ever seen. And this was in the Premier League, not League One, with no disrespect to that run. Whatever he said at halftime fired him up. And within 3 minutes, we thought we were back ahead with one of the greatest Thunder bastards in history from Alexis Mccallister. Unfortunately, VAR, after literally 5 minutes, not just it took a long time. No, it literally took 5 in-game minutes on the clock to decide. That was not a goal. It was offside. I believe it was Caicedo who was supposed to be offside with
I think it was Mwepu.
Was it Mwepu?
Yeah.
So what do we think about this, fellas? Because the 2 Robbies and Rebecca Lowe on NBC did not like the call at all. They really didn't like it. Jeff Stelling, legend that he is, hated the call as well. And even Gary Lineker, Mr. Leicester, was not pleased. I think he was more annoyed at the time it took than anything else. But across social media, it was all the talk really until we ended up turning 3 more past them. But what do we think? Was it offside? Should it have been given as offside? And just general thoughts on that. And from then on, we start talking about just what was an utter demolishment. But what do we think of that VAR call?
It was egregiously stupid. Where did we get away from the clear and obvious error piece? And let's also not lose the piece around this whole weekend has been a disaster class for VAR. West Ham were cost to come back against Chelsea because Jared Bowen went near Mendy, and it had nothing to do with the actual play when they scored. The reason, as you say, the only reason why we're not absolutely up in arms in this is because of what happened afterwards. Imagine how you would feel as fans right now if the game ended in a draw, or even Leicester just scored some counter at the end and won the game off the back of that. Horrendous refereeing, the fact that they had to go and spend all that time on it to then make a stupid decision. None of the Leicester players have even appealed the decision. Like, no one was even saying, no, that you can't have that. No, no one would have ever questioned if you'd have just not even looked into it. And I've seen there was even a foul in the second half where Maddison hacked down, was it Trossard or someone? They didn't even look at it. They just continue on. This should have been a penalty. It should have been a second penalty. But no, let's call back one of the best goals you'll see all year because some dickheads in a studio a bunch of miles away thought, let's get our little rulers out and figure this out. Idiots.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I mean, I think if you if you work backwards from Rebecca Lowe's comment, which, I mean, she literally said, what is happening to our game? and you continue on that path. Obviously, the league has given the referees a little bit of leniency to determine the physicality of the game has gotten much better, and it's a lot more free flowing. So they've allowed them to decide, hey, we want you to have some control in how the game kind of flows and is played. If you continue to work back from that, yes, maybe, I don't even know. I mean, it's tough to see the player behind Mwepu to see if he's off. But let's say he is. When they made that call, and when they sent the ref to the actual screen to review it, I thought, all right, this is how it's going to work. He's going to go over and realize I'm not going to change the character of this game based on some ticky-tack minor, potential infringement. And when he didn't, it became this sense of well, what's the purpose of, not to get too draconian about it, but what's the purpose of them? At this point, you might as well just have a bunch of cameras everywhere and just make the calls through a computer system.
Yeah, I agree with you. Let's go crazy. Let's get some robots in. Let's do it. It's stupid. It's farcical.
Stupid. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if Mwepu scores on that bicycle kick somehow and you have to take it away because of the offside, then that's a different discussion maybe. But, to fast forward all the way back to Rebecca, I think it's what's happening to the game at this point. So they have to get that fixed because at that point as well, granted, and we'll talk about it. This goes to the Adam's theme of we'll just talk about the positive in a little bit. But I felt absolutely gutted for Alexis at that point. That is arguably the greatest strike of his life that could potentially have been the game winner. And it was unceremoniously stolen from him, and you felt for him. Now we'll get to that character comment about the club, because I think it speaks. You almost saw the reaction when they took it away from him. It didn't faze him. He was just like, all right, well, let's crack on and let's just keep going and win this, so good on them. But yeah, I'm with Rebecca and all of you on down. So
Craig, I'm going to come to you for this as well. Just in the comments, Nick, ridiculous VAR call. At best, it was inconclusive, in which case you should give benefit of the doubt to the attacking team. But if you have to break out the set squares and protractors, give the goal. It seems to have gone from checking for errors to desperately looking for reasons not to give the goal. Ox as well also said it was not quite as bad as Mendy and the Newcastle decision yesterday. Michael says Potter said it went by shadows according to the officials when he spoke to him. That's not the first time I've heard that in the last calendar week either. We've heard that more than once from officials. They decided things by shadows. But here's the one that I wanted to talk about and get your thoughts on, Craig, as to whether you agree with this piece. So if the player interferes with play is the reasoning that's probably going to go into the referee report. However, Ox in the chat doesn't think that Justin would have headed it anywhere else anyway. And at that point, a new passage of play. We're into another phase of play at that point when it gets cleared. What do you think on the fact that interfering with play? Do you think it was do you think he interfered enough to affect the trajectory of that header, or do you think Justin would have done anything different? Do you think there's foundation behind that? Is what I'm asking you.
I think there is. But then you go into the granular detail of how much is he interfering. It's not whether he was or wasn't. It was to an extent. And when you come to that point, and would he have done anything different? I personally, and again, it's all subjective. I think that's what they were beating the drum when on the commentary was. This is a purely subjective piece of officiating, and I think we can all agree the level of officiating isn't good enough in the Premier League and hasn't been for a while. But to the VAR point is he affecting enough of the play to change the outcome or drastically change what's happening? And I don't think he is. That's come out all the way out to the 25 yards out. It's completely it's been cleared to an extent, and Alexis has the ability to just put it top bins. And I think I agree with the rest of you. It's the amount of time it takes to cherry pick a mistake and a reason why this is not a goal. So that benefit of the doubt of the attacker, when we're talking 10, 15 years ago, when we were playing, it was always just give the benefit of the doubt to the attacker when it came to offsides and that sort of stuff. That's why we've got thicker lines. That's the general premise, is that you want an entertaining game. Let's not chalk off every single possible thing. And if it does take 5 genuine in-game minutes, like Josh said, then that's not clear and obvious. And I think that's where VAR is completely deteriorated, where it's looking for any reason to stop something from happening, as opposed to allowing or giving the benefit of the doubt. Then I start thinking, well, if that was given against us, would we feel aggrieved? To an extent, possibly. But also, if someone finished like that, I can think of Antonio at home against West Ham, where he shoved Dunk and then whacked it in the top bins. That's part of the game. You win some, you lose some. It's just, the one thing that gets on my mind is the amount of time it takes to find something clear and obvious. It is not clear and obvious anymore.
Yeah, that's the key point. I think that's absolutely it. Give him 30 seconds, figure it out. If you can't figure it out, we're just going with what's already been decided. They've already come out and said that the PGMOL have already said that they're going to review, or basically said that the West Ham and Newcastle ones were wrong. I bet their fans are really content with that. What's that going to mean? A letter of apology and, so we'll learn from our mistakes. It's BS. It doesn't help anyone. And
they won't learn either. We've seen they won't learn.
No. This is the first conversation or the last that we'll have about this. But thankfully, it didn't make a difference. But what a strike! What a strike, though.
Yeah.
And for the other route, Josh, put your dad's shadows comment and just start having like a Fred Flintstone sundial wristwatch to keep time from that.
Yeah, let's just go really far the other way and just take it completely. Yeah.
But let's talk about the goal, because you're right. The mentality was superb, Tommy. They didn't back off. They just went straight back at it. And we got 2 goals in 6 minutes again, funnily enough, a little bit later on. And the first one came from Leandro Trossard, a player that I can't remember whether it was Tuesday or whether it was the weekend, that we noted I think it was the weekend. He had a couple of superb chances. And every time he had one, he made the wrong decision. There was times when he should have shot, he cut in. Times when he cut in, he should have shot. And we noted that he seemed absolutely against hitting the ball with his left foot. And today, just like at Spurs, tucked away our third with absolute ease with his left foot. Leandro Trossard in an absolute nutshell, isn't it, today? He can be quiet as a mouse for 65 minutes and then produce 6 minutes of a goal and what was one of the most disgusting little bits of skill we'll talk about to win a penalty. It's 6 minutes later.
Yeah, what's Flemish for magician? That's a chat. I want everyone in the chat to figure that one out real quick. It was magic, and the fourth one as well. That one, but yeah,
He's everything that we know and we've said about him. We got the good Leo today. It's more in the second half. Superb stuff from him. But I really do want to talk about the penalty piece as well, because it was just a fantastic murking of Ndidi. To create the goal that I'm watching it back right now, Veltman loses possession, and the Leicester player's about to run forward, and our friend Alexis Mccallister just pile drives in and basically sort of goes around 1.5 players, puts the ball into Pascal Gross, who plays an amazing through ball through to Trossard, and he doesn't really hesitate, takes one touch and just slams it into the bottom right corner. Those three were stunning players today in that second half. Trossard, Gross, and Alexis. We'll go on to Alexis after this Trossard comment, but for me, I really don't. I've been very, very judgmental about Alexis's contributions over the past couple of years. I don't know if I've seen a more dominating 45 minutes from a player in a Brighton shirt than what he did this second half, even with a goal chalked off. He should have a hat-trick. He was utterly superb, and for me, Trossard doesn't score that goal without him doing the work that he did.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'll get my Trossard bit in, and then we'll talk about the Mccallister performance. But yeah, this, like you said, that's what we get with Leo. When he's good, he's great. And when he has an off day, he has a really off day. There's a level of inconsistency there that we've harped on about for episodes and episodes. Just around which one are you going to get today? He seems so at home in that left wing back role now, where he's actually making it his own. And if he's able to score and get assists from that position, as well as not give anything up defensively, which is out in question, given that we conceded 2 today, then I can't see him giving up that space. I think Estepinion's just going to have to wait if he's going to play to that degree. So that's a nice problem to have for Potter. It's, we have someone that, like you said, clearly isn't up to par in the pace of the Premier League right now. Don't worry. If Leo has a game like that once every 2 games, then we're going to win once every 2 games. So yeah. But then, like you said, Mccallister ran everything for 45 minutes. And we've spoke about his sort of new role in that team and where he's playing and the role that he's playing now. It's safe to say that he's adjusted pretty well to that life. And I think him and Caicedo in the middle is a dream. And you saw that for, more than 45 minutes today. But if we're focusing on the second half, I've never seen a more assured performance than that.
A lot of good people fishing out a bunch of comparisons, and we've got Clark Kent's to Superman's and various Flemish references. People have gone off piece with the Belgium stuff, Tommy. So, and I think Dagen's even added the Flemish for magician Tovenar, probably butchering it.
Yeah, thank you for trying, Adam. I was not going to attempt.
Yeah. So I don't know what I did was an attempt even.
Learn other languages, yeah. So.
Alexis Mccallister, superb, and we'll get to his performance shortly. In once we get to that 5th goal and the 4th goal, really, we'll talk about. We'll basically be able to start moving on to the players themselves individually, because it was all just him from then on out. But that penalty win by Leo, what a tiny bit of skill that was. Wilfred Ndidi is not a centre half. I think, Adam, you talked about it on Tuesday about how he is currently being forced to play there. Deeply unhappy playing there, and just got absolutely rinsed by Leo, didn't he? And it was about as clear a penalty as you could possibly get. It was championship centre-half levels of mistake against a top flight player. It was shocking set of defending. And we then had a penalty taker that we now have full faith in. And how confident did he look stroking that away down the middle as well, by the way. And it never looked in doubt, did it?
That 5 seconds he takes when the whistle's blown, gives me severe anxiety, because it's just, he's so calm, but I've never seen anyone else do that, where I'm going to take this penalty on my own time and I'm going to score it. And yeah, the ball's on the lad. It's good to see. And like I think we said last week, it's nice to have a penalty taker where we're actually confident in his ability to put it away. A little bit nervy today, straight down the middle, but he tucked it away nonetheless.
This is the first time I didn't feel nervous about a penalty, just because of what he's done recently, and I think he needed a point to prove after VAR's silliness. The Trossard thing is just incredible. Man United just paid 100 million to get a player to do basically that all game, and we've got one for the cut price of that. He was. I will say Leicester's defensive lineup outside of Bournemouth to me looks like the worst goalkeeper backline combination I think I've seen definitely this year. Just heinous. Wilfred and Ndidi and Johnny Evans as your centre backs, and then Danny Ward looked championship level keeper to me. Very, very flappy all over the place. Not to take away from the fact that there are not many players that would attempt what Trossard did, and there are not many players that would just confidently step up and just smash the ball down the middle for a penalty after a 5-second wait. So good stuff.
Yeah, we should lobby whoever makes the highlight film at the end of the year for the club that includes all the goals, not to exclude a very cheeky and dirty kind of penalty, but we should just swap the actual upper V strike that got disallowed with that one as well, and call it good, because yeah, it was wonderful. And Adam, to your comment about just the back line as well. I mean, I had my 9-year-old daughter sitting with me, and I had to like cover her eyes because the back line kept like blatantly dropping F-bombs at each other, like in full view that a 9-year-old could kind of read. And it was just, it was Ward literally, at in front of his players.
Yeah, he nearly had a fight with Ndidi in the first half, didn't he?
He did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ndidi should have just commented like, we'll get some footwork behind yourself. But yeah, it was rough.
Yeah, it wasn't great.
Not for us.
Well, yeah, not for us.
We'll insert that to the character juxtapositions.
Yeah, and you can only, this cliche, but you can only play what's in front of you. And we've seen the downside of that on Tuesday, where arguably on paper you beat that Fulham team, but they did it properly today.
Yeah, and today was a fun one on the stats side of things, because when you look at the overall, like the basic stuff that you see on your sofa scores and who scores, it was a good indication that today, unlike some of the others like Fulham, that the eye test and the stats match each other perfectly, because the stats read as dominant as the team performed. I've not seen this in a long time, so we'll get to this one last, but dominated possession today, which is something we haven't done pretty much all season. Namely because of that big uptick in long balls that we've talked about a couple of times. And Adam, you pointed out today, but pass success rate all the way back up to 85%, which is a huge improvement upon the last couple of weeks. Dominated on corners 10-1. And we're going to talk a little bit about that once we've covered the game really in one of those graphics from the Athletic, Adam, you sent over, in Albion's really poor performance from set pieces. But we had 23 shots today, 11 of them on target. Can you remember the last time we had 23 shots? Because I can't. That was outrageous.
I didn't really know what it felt like to have 23 shots and score 5 goals. This is a new feeling.
Yeah, I was going to say there was a Palace game. I think we had 26 and lost 2-1. But
Peak XG, yes. Yeah.
Scrubbed from my brain. Awful. Ox as well. He was thinking of that Palace game. It was I think it was the Benteke. Was it the last kick of the game at the back post? Horrific.
Yeah, we don't need to talk about this. We can just
absolutely awful. So let's talk about the players, because I mean it was a who's who of unbelievable performances. And let's talk about one of them that probably isn't going to get talked about much by much of anybody else. Mr. Danny Welbeck, back in the side today, and my goodness, did we look a different side again? We looked the same side that put us into that top 4, top 5 in the first place. The way he stretches defenses, we've said it a bunch of times, but he was back at it again today. Nothing to show for it, unfortunately for him. But I put it on social media as well. We have been crying out for, and it's the reason why so many people cry about wanting more strikers, right? And to the extreme extent that some people were on Thursday. But, we want strikers because we don't have faith in the players behind them to score goals, because historically, over the last 2 to 3 seasons, they've shown they're not capable of scoring the amount of goals we need from them. Something has changed in these players' mentality. And Danny Welbeck is the catalyst for that being allowed to happen. The space he provides these players to allow someone like Caicedo to maraud down the right wing out of nowhere and put one away like that. The ability for Trossard to play such a high level of left wing back, the way he's able to play so far up so often, is because Danny is dragging them all so far out of position and so far back into their own box. And he held up the ball beautifully today. There was a couple of times those long balls went directly to him. He was big, he was strong. He's not going to get a lot of plaudits today outside of here, probably, because everybody's going to be focusing on some unbelievable performances. But there was one big change from Tuesday, and that was Danny Welbeck was back in the side. And look at what we did.
Special, isn't he? I think it's just, you think about what he does for the team. Like you said, he's a bit of an unsung hero for us, and that he allows other things to happen. I think I messaged you both as well. I was like, the midfield brought their shooting boots today. And it's not, it is due to the hard work that the rest of the team is putting in. And to note, Danny Welbeck, currently playing out of his skin, and the best we've seen him in a fairly long time. So credit to him. He's obviously put in the work. Like I said, he looks jacked as well. Like he's throwing himself about. He's quick. He's really clever. Has everything that we need to get that midfield going. And if we start scoring more goals from midfield, like you said, we don't need this hypothetical 20-goal a season striker. Graham kindly pointed out there's only 2 of those in the whole league. So, they have to come from somewhere.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say there might be 3 of them now, given that Haaland has
maybe
is it 9 or 10 goals in the first 6?
By the way Salah started, I think it'll go down to 2.
Oh, you're correct. Yes, yeah, we switched out. Get him on the plane, Gareth. Come on. We need some experience in that team. And it's not like outside of Harry Kane, there's a wealth of strong talent up front, depending on your perception of Sancho, Rashford, and Sterling and co. But I think it's a combination of things. This game was a perfect storm. This was ideal. Outside of the 2 silly conceded goals, this could have absolutely been a 5-0 win. And it's the kind of game that this team wants to see. Not entirely reliant on a number 9 shirt, but everyone else getting goals. An incredibly strong performance from midfield and the wingers. A lot of last season, and dare I say it, this might be controversial, but one of the reasons we didn't get quite as many goals from the midfield is because of us being more reliant on playing some of those players that maybe don't necessarily have quite as good a shot on them. If you think about today, we're playing Trossard as left wing back. Last year, that was Cucurella. Cucurella's an amazing player, but he's not really a great finisher, is he? Basuma, famous for just sending them into Rose Ed. Lallana, I don't think Lallana's hit the broadside of a barn for about 4 years at this point. And then oftentimes we were playing Lamptey, great player, not very good at shooting. March to Katana shots, they don't all work out that well, but at some point, if you smash them enough at the goal, one will go in. Gross has been incredible. Mccallister can score. You've seen Mccallister can score. Caicedo can score. You've seen that today. Trossard can score from left back. Mwepu can smash them in. These are the players that can score from midfield positions and winger positions. I don't know if we were set up necessarily. We were more reliant last year and definitely the year before that on a forward. If these players keep doing this, then I don't care. Put anyone up there. Put anyone up front. Doesn't matter.
I would like to go back and look at the first goal as well to see what Danny's involvement was. But I think I don't know if you all kind of agree, but the direct kind of play from us this year compared to the past, I think is directly correlated to what he can do for us to hold that ball, and it provides a lot. And you think about, when was the last time, and not many do this, but when was the last time that Brighton scored from a wing back directly connecting with another wing back for a goal? And I think that allows, and previously, and not necessarily to a fault, but previously there was so much tried to be intricate play to kind of build out of the back. And I get it, but it's too hard then to bring the entire midfield into a position where they feel secure to actually overextend themselves a bit and get into those positions like Sully did for that first goal. And I think it goes directly back to Danny's ability to hold the ball and provide those runs and stretch that defense a bit more.
Yep. 84% pass accuracy today from our hold-up striker. You can't ask for much more than that if you're wanting to get strong build-up. Let's talk about some of the others, obviously, because they were outstanding. So what we'll do is actually we'll just go to man of the match, because I think we're probably going to talk about all the ones that we want to here. So starting with, let's start with Craig, because you're next to me on my screen. Who have we got for you for man of the match and why?
Well, I'm glad you came to me first, because I can take the easy one. I think it
Could be anyone.
Yeah, it's his best performance for Brighton by far. It has to be McAllister. The mentality, like we've been talking about, have that absolute wonder strike called off, and then go and put a free kick in the same corner. Unbelievable. Yeah, just ran the show for 45 minutes. Just got his just desserts. Should have had 2 more. Theoretically, we should have had another penalty, and I don't agree with the offside. So one of the best performances I've seen from an individual in a very long time.
I can go. Well, I think it's quite fun. It's a good performance when we haven't really even commented on sort of the 96-minute, 35-yard free kick that went in, which was we didn't score many free kicks directly like that.
The last one I can think of is Gross against Everton, where he just twatted it.
Just smashed it. Yeah, this isn't that free kick where it just bends around the wall and goes top corner. My memory's not very good, but it would have to be especially good if I remember the last one of those. Yeah, look, it's obviously Alexis, but as we said earlier, there's an argument there to say Gross played. Gross I still don't really understand what's happened there. He's just looks $1 million. And I'll give it to Trossard though, purely for the silliness, purely for that little murk around Ndidi. That adds another 2 points to his rating out of 10 for me. So he takes over Alexis purely for that audaciousness.
To speak up back to your, I'll pick a man of the match as well. But Adam, to your point about the free kick, I listened to the interviews after, and I'd like to explore this a little bit more. Maybe you, Craig, because you're like the analytics guy, but McAllister mentioned something about using software to help improve his free kick taking abilities. And my minuscule soccer brain did not compute the level of that, but it looked precision to that point as well. So and we should talk about it. And it just felt like, just to pile on to McAllister here, it was so fitting, and in a game where you're trying to, when you're looking at the kind of soccer gods and that capacity to make up for what occurred to him prior, I mean, you could not have written it any better. And you almost start to think about, now this goal should turn, the one that was disallowed should turn from, VAR sucks, which it does, et cetera, into this beautiful story of not only the match, but like the character of the club, to say, hey, to look at all these things that someone like McAllister had overcome, and look at then that second half that he put together, with having that setback. So, yeah, so all just to just to pick someone else, since I can't.
So your man of the match is, after all, that Webster, right?
Yeah, exactly. I could pick Dunk and just say, and just assume that he, slapped everybody around and that helped in that second half as the captain. No, I mean, Solly Marsh he's always been my guy, or a favorite character on the club for years, obviously. And I do think I want to pick on just how kind of relentless he was all day. After time where he had a couple of tougher matches, and then to give up the ball that led to the first goal in that first minute, and then just tick off everything else that we've done. I'll just put it on him to add to the general midfield that it was unbelievable today.
Yeah, there's so many names, isn't there, that we could go through. Just to cover some key stats today as well before I throw mine out there, which is probably not going to be that exciting anyway. Enoch Wepu led the team in tackles today. You wouldn't have thought that, would you? But leading from the front, and I think he's doing exactly what we wanted Lallana to do, and you saw that with the way Lallana would press for 60 minutes. Led the way in tackles today, and by double as well, big time. He was more important than I think we realized. Pascal Gross led the way in key passes, leading to opportunities today. He just keeps doing it. He just keeps churning away. And there's one player that we haven't mentioned, and we continue to not mention him whenever we talk about defensive lapses, and that is Mr. Consistent Joel Veltman today. He isn't my man of the match by any stretch, but we didn't talk about him again because he just isn't making mistakes. He's just so consistent. This is a £900,000 player. I know we say it every 2 weeks, but Jesus Christ, he didn't do anything wrong today. None of those goals were on him. None of those defensive lapses were on him. He was very good today, and he partnered up with Solly March again really well.
Inflation, Josh. He's now only $750,000 player. Just adjust it accordingly.
But Alexis Mccallister for me, I'm just going to have to just go with it because it was just so obvious. And it was the most complete midfield performance we've seen from him ever. And it's one that we've talked about for so long, isn't it? Like, defensively is where he has the hang-ups, and he got booked early in that first half. So I was like, oh no, oh no, please don't get booked again. But he was imperious in that midfield defensively today. And I mean, albeit against currently the worst team in the league, defensively, he just is growing every single week. And it probably can't hurt to be playing alongside one of the most defensively talented midfielders we've ever seen at the Albion, even at the age of 20. But he was picture perfect today. Should have had a hat-trick. Should have been hat-trick of the Premier League history, really, if he had counted. I don't think there's any better hat-trick ever than that one if he had been allowed to have scored that first. But I just thought he was unbelievable, as did all of you. I know that, but just unreal. And it is worth noting that he is in the last year of his contract, by the way. He's added zeros onto that contract every time.
He's got a trigger. There's a 12-month extension trigger in there, I think, isn't there?
I think there definitely was for Trossard. I'm not sure about Max.
I think he has it as well.
23, by the way. He's 23 years old, and there's a World Cup coming up in 2 months.
He's in the squad 100% like that. I think he's been in it consistently, isn't he? But this felt like his Brighton. I know he's been man of the match once already this season, I think. This felt like his coming out party, though, didn't it? This felt like his true evolution as you are now the player we hoped you would be. He doesn't do this second half last year. He doesn't do it the year before. There's something's happened there where he's changed himself, and he's now this becoming the engine of the team. And I want to go back to what you said there with him next to Caicedo. It's just obscene that we've not walked into it, because that then sort of hints at luck. The fact that this recruitment team just collect these players is well, it's not really rivaled in the league for the most part. No other club can do this. Ridiculous. So good.
Do you think, now I want to move on to comment Ox left like 40 minutes ago. I haven't forgot about you, Ox. I saw it. Should we be scoring more from set pieces with the likes of Webster and Dunk? Seems like it's been a while since someone rifled a header home. So let's just talk about that a little bit. 10 corners today for the Albion. Nothing to show for it. Should have had an absolute thunderstrike, right, of that goal from the second ball from a set piece, but no goals today, from that kind of situation. What are we thinking there? Obviously we've found ourselves a penalty taker, which is nice. We seem to have found ourselves a direct free taker as well, if he can keep hitting them like that. But these goals from corners and stuff, they're not coming as much as they really should, with the likes of Pascal Gross and Mccallister and players like that as set piece experts that we have. Why do you think that is? Do you think with the aerial talent we have in that side, what do you think we're not getting there, or is it just one of those bad luck things?
I don't know. I think it's such a cop-out answer, but there is no reason, is there? Because you have two very talented headers of the ball. There's Welbeck in there as well that can also do it. You have two very good free kick takers in Mccallister and Gross. It's just not clicking, I guess. I can't really put my finger on why we're not as attacking or not as dangerous from those set pieces. But then if you come to it, if Mccallister can do that from the penalty spot and 30 yards out, and Gross does put good balls in, I think it's just. But then part of my mind goes, well, they weren't really dangerous from set pieces either, or any sort of other team that I'm watching isn't really that dominant from set pieces either. I don't feel at unease when a team has a corner as well. So it's a strange one. I haven't seen anyone really that's super dangerous from those free kicks or those corners where I think, oh, we're in trouble here. I honestly don't know. I mean, I'm keen to hear what Adam and Tommy think too.
We spoke about this with Jonathan, the Brighton Bard, on the transfer pod on, when was this? We've done so many pods this week. Thursday? Because he raised the same issue. So I'm not quite sure why we're not doing this. It felt like we could have taken another 5-6 corners with the same outcome. And the problem with maybe putting Alexis back on corner duty, because if you remember last season, he moved on to corners and we started to have a little bit of uptick in success. But now, after what you've seen today, you need him sat outside the box, really, ready for a rebound to smash it in the top corner. So I don't want him on corners. So I don't know. I wonder whether part of it's due to a bit of regression in form that we've seen out of Webster. I still think no one really does it as good as Duffy did. And we've not really caught up with that. But I don't have a good answer for you either. The only thing I will say, the big saving grace is, when you score 5 goals outside of that, I don't really care. So just keep doing that.
Yeah, here's my really profound answer for you, Craig. And I'm tapping all of my has-been striker knowledge here. It's just hard. I would be interested if Josh or you have it. I think the important factor would be, over the duration of a season, have we conceded more than we have scored? And I think that's the biggest mark. Because I think to Adam's comment, aside from Duffy, I don't see anybody better than Dunk that's sitting out there in the league. And if he's not making it happen, the balls in the box from Pascal for the most part are by and large good balls. It's just sometimes you need a little bit of extra luck on that side. But the bigger thing would be not to concede on the other end. That part you can control a little bit more. But
yeah, I don't have those numbers for you. I'll get them. I feel like I'm at work now. I'll get that data for you.
I've got some random numbers for you if it helps. This deeply researched in the last 10 seconds is that last season there were 146 goals from corners in the Premier League, and between 10 and 14%, it's just standard Googling, 10 to 14% of all Premier League goals are from corners. They're not from ours, not even close. So the top three sides goals from corners last year, though, Liverpool, Man City, Arsenal. So clearly there is something that the better sides are doing. And I don't look at an Arsenal side from last year and think to myself, wow, that's a bunch of 6'5" lads that are getting up for corners. Especially when you look around at who we had on the pitch today with Dunk and Webster and Wepu. Like there's guys up there that can get their head up. I just don't know. I'm not quite sure why they're not doing it.
It becomes a numbers game at that point. Maybe the number of attempts. I don't know.
Yeah.
If Ox asked the question, both he and I brain went back to that Crystal Palace loss that we had also about 15 corners. So we're probably remembering that, drumming up old history. But yeah, I don't know. That's a good call. Good point.
Yeah. Another one just around the league. Grass is not always greener, is it, fellas? Bissouma on the bench, still not able to get in. Conte said he is well behind Bentancur and Højbjerg right now. Not just a little bit. He was quite clear that he was
classic Conte,
far behind them in getting a start. Cucurella, bang average to poor. Chelsea fans were desperate to get him off. Chilwell comes on and scores an absolute screamer. And then yesterday, Neil Maupay had more shots for Everton than he ever had with Brighton and Hove Albion. So there was a lot of discussion around Neil over the last 3 years. And one of them was we have to provide better service for a player that needs opportunities to score, right? He's a volume striker. We need to get him more opportunities to score. We're not providing in that. We're putting in all this pretty build-up with no final ball into the box. Well, yesterday he had it at Everton. More shots than ever before. 0.7 XG, 0 goals. Not the greatest start in the world for him. And broke down about 3 counterattacks with how slow he was. Just feels like we've made some great business here, doesn't it? We've offloaded 2 of our best players and our top scorer for the last 3 seasons. And none of them are pulling up sticks anywhere else. And we're currently sat 4th in the Premier League. Tony Bloom's business model, ladies and gents.
Josh, can I add an extra layer to that? Because I think
absolutely
it's a good thing to this would be a fun investigative report for Mr. Andy Naylor, since he's probably listening, would be in the post-match interview, Solly March said something that stuck with me. He said that this is the best group that he's been around since he's been at the club. And the interviewer kind of questioned him on like, well, you just lost arguably, 2 or 3 of your best players. I'm not sure how she actually phrased it. And so it made it seem like, no, I think this just goes to that character piece of like, no, in the locker room and on the practice pitch. And you wonder if, it goes to a little bit of Potter saying, hey, I'm not going to cry if we sell some of these players for, north of X amount because of, I don't know, I'm not saying that those 3 that you mentioned are bad characters in the locker room. I'm just wondering if there's a correlation there between what you just brought up and what Solly had said.
Oh, we definitely saw towards the middle tail end of last season, the characters of Maupay and Bissouma when things weren't going that well in certain games and their attitudes at the end of walking off and so on and so forth. And we don't know the inner workings of all that, but there was quite clearly something, especially a player knows that their days are numbered at the club. The bad days don't look good. If you're not getting game time, it doesn't look good. And now with the South American contingent, we've got a good group that clearly you're just watching them outside of the 90 minutes. It's very clear that there's a good camaraderie there, and that then just goes on to fuel itself over and over again. So I wish all the players that have left, I wish them all the best. Like, I'm not going to say, Maupay, but it's more of a case of, great, we got good money for these players. And if they're not working out for these new clubs, that's a shame for them. But we're going from strength to strength, and we've replaced them already in a really effective way. I will say I did laugh when we're talking about corners. First corner for Chelsea, Cucurella just slammed it against the first person just on the edge of the box, just went nowhere. So it's like, okay, well, don't worry. That's not. Everyone has these problems, guys. It's not just us.
Yeah, Chelsea are having a whole set of their own problems. They're a very, very odd side. Tuchel is an absolute prick, so I'm happy to see it. But yeah, I'm not so much laughing at them, but it is interesting, right? It's this mentality of we wanted to go play for bigger clubs. I drove past Stamford Bridge one day and I said to my wife, I could imagine playing there. You know,
of all the stadiums as well, it's not even it's crap now.
Yeah, I know. If it was like the Spurs stadium when it was just rolled out, yeah. But you know, the grass is not always greener, and we're seeing it in real action, live action. That some of these players are not making the step up that they're hoping to early on with some of these clubs. And I think Basuma is more than good enough to be in that starting midfield, and it's a shame he isn't. I was really hoping I was going to watch him tear up Europe, but it seems like he's really struggling at the minute. And I think, Tommy, you brought in a really interesting point. All the media's been talking about all summer is Brighton have sold their best players. I wonder if that's helped with a kind of us against them mentality. Not us against those three players, but us against the world. Like, they think we're worse than last year. Like, okay, let's go out there and show them that we're not. Let's go out there and show them what we've got. Let's go and show them that this business model works. This club works. Our manager is excellent. And we are, as a team, good enough to succeed without them. It feels, I wonder if that's part of that mentality. When you said Solly was saying it's the best team, I wonder if that's what, going about 4 steps of logic down the road, I wonder if that's part of that mentality that they have.
Well, and you brought up our farm system in West London there. And so I'll bring it up from the Billy. I know nothing about Billy Gilmore at all. But you wonder how much he's just salivating at the thought of getting to play with this club at whatever place he is in his career. And hopefully it speaks to exactly that it'll, to your point, Josh, thinking 3-4, kind of steps down the road, that now you'll be having other players, it's already kind of, you can already see, I know, Adam, you've tapped into this a lot around, from a Ecuadorian and kind of South American perspective, but there's already some sort of, the news is out on what's kind of going on inside the club and inside the clubhouse. So
there's something special here, though, isn't there? I think, Josh, you've said that a few times and sort of tweeted it out. There's this air of invincibility at the moment that's surrounding that, everything is pulling in the right direction and everyone's on the same page. And whilst we have got rid of some solid players, like some of our best players from last year and years gone, we're still 4th, 13 from 18 points. We're attacking these games and we're in control for a lot of these games. Long may it continue, but there's something very good about this group, and you can feel it is borderline tangible. So yeah, it's really exciting. And when you think, just to pick out the midfield, just because they were so good today, but when you have a 23-year-old and a 20-year-old as your two midfielders, and they're running Premier League games like it's nothing, there's something very good about this team, and Potter's got them moving all in the right direction. And maybe, like you said, using some of that camaraderie and to say, look, let's go and show them what we've got. Yeah, we've made £60 million profit this year. People think that we should have replaced you with better players, so go and prove them wrong.
You heard from Billy Gilmore's interview when he first signed. One of the first things he did when the transfer was being discussed, he called Levi Colwill and he called Tarek Lamptey from when the Chelsea days, obviously. This works. The same Estupinian. You don't think he obviously picked up the phone and had a chat with his countrymen at the club. This stuff is contagious in a good way. Long may it continue, because we've still got money to spend. January is not that far off. We're in September. We can start to continue making this thing go from strength to strength.
Yeah, I don't want to go too far over the hour and a half mark. We're an hour and 18, 19 in now. But Tommy, I did want to take some time. We're going to cover Bournemouth, just a quick look ahead to Bournemouth after this. But I'd love you to, especially because it was a while ago that you're on for Everton, and we're obviously trying to do our best to forget however that performance went down. But I'd love you to, for those who are listening on the podcast on your commute or whatever you're doing, Tommy was wearing a rather old shirt for an American to be wearing, especially these days with a lot of the fans that we've had on. Early 2000s with the old badge. Do you want to chat a little bit about your entryway, your gateway? You were saying it was kind of the polar opposite to Dageners and the famous spreadsheet of doom over there that spelt doom for Leeds anyway, because they didn't pick them. Do you want to talk about that? What that looked like for you, and how you connected with the team?
Yeah, and on behalf of all the other fellow listeners, I appreciate you putting this at the end of the podcast so we didn't like bore everybody at the front end of an amazing match. Why am I listening to this American talk about himself? Yeah, I was going to joke. I'm just a big Fatboy Slim fan with the old Skint records. But and after I can talk to Adam more about, but the long tail of it is, as most Americans kind of growing up in the late 90s, we had minimal options to like actually view the Premier League. And it was, you basically glommed onto either Arsenal or Man U. That was basically your only choices at that point. But I had an opportunity to go do a year abroad, and I went to University of Sussex, where I think Adam went.
Wait, hold on. Yeah, look at this. I didn't even know this.
I'm probably 10 years your senior. And so going over there first, so I played for the club team at Sussex, and like all the guys on the team were primarily from North London, and it was like 9 Arsenal fans and like 1 poor like Spurs fan, and they were just basically like, you we're not saying you have to support the Gunners, but you cannot be a Man U fan. Like they're like that, they gave me the whole story of there's more fans outside of Manchester than inside of Manchester, yada yada. So that was like day one upon my arrival, and then. So Adam, I lived in York House, and there was a porter there. Amazing guy. I can't recall his name. Hopefully you will, maybe. And he had some very similar to my little get up here, where he had, some his Brighton gear up. So I just sat down with him and I said, so what's up with Brighton? What's the story? And so he proceeded to tell me the full gambit of the Goldstone and Robbie Reynolds and the entirety of the amazing history that like was pretty fresh at that point, because this is in the year 2000. And so I ended up just, paying 10 quid or whatever, 5 maybe, to go, sit into the Withdean in the middle of February.
And that's 10 quid too expensive as well, really.
Yeah. Well, for a West Coast kid that, to sit in the Withdean in the middle of February. But it ended up being, I sat down to this old timer that probably had even more kind of Goldstone ground stories. And so he told me, hey, we just picked up this kid, Bobby Zamora, last week. And he scores. And, on the rest is history. So we drew the match against Plymouth, but it was the next season, they won, they promoted out of the 4th tier, and then they won back to back. And so luckily I made friends with those Arsenal fans. So I kept coming back and, staying for free, and I would come back and go down to Brighton and try to watch them and pick up gear. But to watch that journey and then the saga of building the stadium, et cetera. I mean, I talked earlier about the spreadsheet and the character of the club. And I think that's the big thing to hang on to, is just, you cannot find from my perspective, a better, just general club in professional football than we have, and with such amazing story that I get to then tell to everyone here in Portland, and that story then continues, right? And it's the story of McAllister's disallowed goal and how they like persevered through, and it's those stories that like my little girls love and like the neighbors love, and now there's a dozen or so of us with Brighton jerseys in Portland. There's probably one at some, and it doesn't happen if you're like, oh, I'm a City fan or something like that. It happens by telling that Robbie Reynolds story way too many times over, pints at the pub. But anyway, so yeah, that's me.
That's awesome. You go pretty far back. Like the fact that you were there and you could have been very easily sort of fallen into the dark side and been a Man U fan, or sort of more likely an Arsenal fan. Which, to be honest, probably based on current form, you've done better, because that would have been a pretty miserable last 5 to 6 years for you if you'd gone down that pathway. But yeah, that's great. I mean, especially with the fact that you're sort of building out sort of mini crew of fans over in the Pacific Northwest as well, which that's a long way from Brighton. So it's you gotta be a fan to get up on those mornings and to support from over there. So good for you. That's a great story.
Yeah, it was a bad 50 seconds when I woken up at
Yeah, you're like, nah, I'm going back to bed.
quarter to 6, and I'm like, oh man, now I have to talk about this with guys that know more about them than me.
I'm not sure. Based on your story, I'm not sure about that. Yeah,
I think it's really cool as well, because for people like Scooch that's in the chat today, and Dagan as well, we've had a lot of people on lately that are really new, and they look at it and say, this is what I thought the team portrayed to me. And it's really cool to have someone on who is also an American and started so early, and you're able to turn around and say, no, this is their DNA and has been since we can, and it goes further back to the 83 Cup, and it goes further beyond that. Like it really is just the DNA of the club. And that's probably something that people like Dagan are listening to and thinking, like, you're right, the spreadsheet didn't account for that, but thank God, what a lucky run into that I've had. So yeah, I appreciate you sharing that, because it is a cool story. And really supporting them from that far away in the 2000s cannot have been easy to find out what the hell was going on week.
Yeah, it was. The amount of matches watched in the first year of the Premier League quadrupled that I was able to scratch up, over, random, probably pirated, streams to watch a second division match. But yeah, and you're right, Josh. I mean, I do feel lucky to have been kind of placed in that, because it's a fun kind of soccer. I think, as your dad said, kind of a great kind of football family to be a part of, and so it's great.
Yeah, let's talk Bournemouth, because they had quite a rise at one point as well, and we play them again this weekend. They are currently managerless. Mr. Gary O'Neill is interim manager right now. They are not having the best start to life in the Premier League, but they had a heck of a comeback this weekend against Nottingham Forest, which came out of absolutely nowhere, by the way. At the City Ground, no less, 2-0 down to come back to win 3-2. New manager bounce, or rather old manager gone bounce, is always bound to happen. Bournemouth, historically, very good against us, namely because Mr. Eddie Howe managed them. That curse has been lifted, and we actually conducted ourselves pretty well last couple of games against them without Eddie Howe there. What are we thinking we're kind of walking into here? This is a team that very on and off, very odd this year, just came up, barely anything done in the transfer market, really has. They've barely done anything at all. Just got dicked by 9 at Anfield. And then kind of steadied the ship a little bit with the 0-0 against Wolves and the 3-2 win against Forest, and welcome us at home, high-flying Albion, come next week at 3:00/10 a.m. So what are we, or much earlier for you, Tommy? Sorry to rub it in, but what are we thinking here? Is this the trap game that we're all worried about? Are we thinking come away with a point from this and just run, or are you genuinely thinking, do you know what? F it, we should be winning this, and that's what I'm expecting or hoping for.
I still think this is a trap. Really, I think we've seen it too many times. It's like, well, if it's not this one, it will be the next one, and then it will be the next one. Well, that's just the mentality, maybe. But like you said, they've steadied that ship. The very premature sacking of Scott Parker, but fair enough. But like you said, 0-0 against Wolves. They come with a nice little bounce back win against Forest. They'll be riding high as well. So I think, cliche, every game's going to be tough. You have to beat what's been put in front of you. I just think we got to ride that wave. We've got to try and get 3 points out of this and go and attack. But we'll see. I think, like I said, I'm always a little bit hesitant with these games where you go away to a promoted side. They've just off the back of a good result. It could be a very good game. I'm not sure what's really going to come of it.
I mean, every game's a trap game now. Now you're fourth. They all feel like traps. This is why this league's so fascinating this year. I mean, we've already seen just a recording after the Man U Arsenal game. After the start of the season, Man U have had turn around and beat the team that everyone's now anointing as maybe second only to Man City in the league. They get smacked 3-1. We've had some other absurd results this weekend and last weekend with Southampton beating Chelsea and things like this. But for Bournemouth to basically get annihilated and wiped off the face of the earth by Liverpool, to have their manager speak out against the board and basically get fired for not only poor performance but also for his attitude, you then go and play against Wolves at home, where in your own ground you have 34% possession and 5 shots to their 17 and scrape away with a 0-0. To then go 2-0 down at Forest. And somehow, what is that halftime? Is that the greatest ever halftime team talk anyone has ever delivered? Like, oh, guys, I know that basically we've had the worst run of luck in history and we've conceded 11 goals in a row now. But go out there and score 3 if you could. What? I don't understand. So I have no idea what's going to happen because based off of this game coming in here, I want a 3-0 win at minimum. That's what this feels like. I want to smash them. But who knows? I have no idea, and that's what's wonderful about the league.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It's going to be 3-0. And then we'll just see which one picks up the 3, I guess.
That's ominous. We played them last January 2020, 21st of January 2020, and we got beat 3-1. It was barely a month after we had beat them pretty comfortably at our place in one of the most easy wins I've seen us do it before Watford came along. But we've here just something to cover here, just because it's interesting. So the last time we played Bournemouth was 21st of January 2020. We got beat 3-1. Goals from Harry Wilson, Callum Wilson, and Pascal Gross own goal. Our starting 11 for that day. Matt Ryan in goal. Adam Webster, Alzate Bernardo, Lewis Dunk, Pascal Gross, Jahan Baksh, David Proper, Dale Stevens, Aaron Moy, and Neil Mopey. That's our starting 11 last time. Very different team going into Dean Court or whatever it is these days, isn't it? Very different 11 that's going to rock up this weekend.
Hindsight's a tremendous thing, isn't it? At the time, we're all like, so come on, Jahan Baksh can come good. Moy's a world-class player. Matty Ryan, one of the best keepers in the league. Yeah, well, it's crazy how it all works out.
Pascal Gross own goal. Finished, mate. He's finished.
Yeah, he's done. It's over. Get him out of the league.
It's going to be a tough one this weekend, though. I think we'll have a tough one. But I'm asking you for score predictions. What are we going for?
I don't get to sit with my 3-0 either way. I'll say 4-0 either way. No. I'll say 3-1 on the inverse then for you, Josh. So the Albion.
Adam?
I think we smash them. I want to win. Let's win 3-0.
Craig?
I'm gonna go 2-1 Albion. I don't think it'll be as comfortable as maybe we'd like it to be, but 2-1 to us.
This is 100% going to be clipped for next week because I'm going 2-0 Brighton as well. So first time in a long time, I feel like we've ever all predicted a victory for us.
Oh God!
Yeah,
and it feels like we're absolutely going to have to clip this back now. It's one of those kind of like aged well, or like moments before unfortunate events.
Alexis missed penalty in the 89th minute.
Yeah, but one of the Robbies who obviously gets paid a few dollars more than the three of you said 1-0.
That's not hard.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, yeah, so we're going against that as a standard. So
That's true. Yeah. All right. So we've gone over the hour and a half now. It's really these podcasts are just getting longer and longer as we get better and better. I'm not complaining too much. It feels if I was listening to a podcast that I enjoyed listening to, which thank you for those that do, I'd probably want to listen to more of it when we're dicking teams 5-2. So I hope it's not too long for you all. But that's about everything I think we've got. So we'll be back next week. We will be back on Sunday live streaming at 11 a.m. Eastern. So that will be 4 p.m. UK time. That will be the 8
Pacific.
8 Pacific, and wherever else you are in the world. We've got listeners in Kenya, Ghana, and just about everywhere else we were looking at the other day. So thanks for listening. And if you want to get on that, you know when that time zone will be. Otherwise, we'll be out Monday morning, same as everywhere else, the same as every other week if you want to listen in on the pod. But we will be covering all things Bournemouth. We will be looking ahead to that game shortly afterwards against them up the road at Selhurst. So I think they're coming down to us, right? First, we'll be at home for that one. Could be a game that we could go top of the league on. Who knows? So we'll be back next week. So stay safe. Have a lovely long weekend, American listeners. I know I will. For those that aren't, if you're British, you enjoyed it last weekend. So I don't know about much sympathy. So have a good one and stay safe.
Thanks, everyone. Shout out Sussex Uni. Big episode for Sussex Uni right here.